Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well and not missing school too much. I hope you're all learning loads and having lots of fun at home and getting on nicely with all of your family members. I thought today I would read some of Grandpa's Great Escape. It's one of my favourite David Walliams books ever. I love all the pictures and the humour in it is just really funny. So I thought I'd read a little bit of it to begin with, and if you like the sound of it, then either you might have it at home so you can carry on reading it from that, or you can maybe ask your parents very nicely to get it for you so you can carry on reading it at home. So, David Walliams, Grandpa's Great Escape. Up, up and away. This is the tale of a boy called Jack and his grandfather. Once upon a time, Grandpa was a Royal Air Force pilot. During World War II, he flew a Spitfire fighter plane. Our story is set in 1983. This was a time before the internet and mobile telephones and computer games that could be played for weeks on end. In 1983, Grandpa was already an old man, but his grandson Jack was just 12 years old. This is Jack's mum and dad. Mum Barbara works at the cheese counter in the local supermarket. Dad Barry is an accountant. Raj is the local newsagent, and Miss Verity is the history teacher at Jack's school. Detectives Beef and Bone are crime-fighting duo. This security guard works at the Imperial War Museum in London. Miss Swine is the matron of the local old folks' home, Twilight Towers. Some of the elderly residents there include Mrs. Trifle, the Major, and the Rear Admiral. These are some of the nurses who work at Twilight Towers: Nurse Rose, Nurse Daisy, and Nurse Blossom. This is Twilight Towers. And this is a map of the town. The prologue. This is the part that comes before the story starts. Just a very short chapter. One day, Grandpa began to forget things. It was little things at first. The old man would make himself a cup of tea and forget to drink it. Before long, he would have lined up a dozen cups of cold tea on his kitchen table. Or he would run a bath and forget to turn off the taps, flooding his neighbour's flat downstairs. Or he would leave the house with the express purpose of buying a stamp, but return home with 17 boxes of cornflakes. Grandpa didn't even like cornflakes. Over time, Grandpa started to forget bigger things. What year it was, whether his long-deceased wife Peggy was alive or not. One day he even stopped recognising his own son. Most startling of all was that Grandpa completely forgot he was an old-age pensioner. The old man had always told his little grandson Jack stories of his adventures in the Royal Air Force all those years ago, in World War II. Now these stories became more and more real to him. In fact, instead of just telling these stories, he began living them out. The present faded into scratchy black and white as the past burst into glorious colour. It didn't matter where Grandpa was or what he was doing or whom he was with. In his mind, he was a dashing young pilot behind the controls of his Spitfire fighter plane. All the people in Grandpa's life found this very difficult to understand, except one person, his grandson Jack. Like all the children, the boy loved to play, and it seemed to him that his grandpa was playing. Jack realised all you had to do was play too. So now that's the beginning of the story. So now part 1, Reach for the Sky. Chapter 1, Spam a la Custard. Jack was a child who was happiest alone in his bedroom. A naturally shy boy, he didn't have many friends. Instead of spending his days playing football in the park with all the other kids from school, he would stay inside assembling his prized collection of model aeroplanes. His favourites were from World War II, the Lancaster bomber, the Hurricane, and of course his grandfather's old plane, the now legendary Spitfire. On the Nazi side, he had models of the Dornier bomber, the Junkers, and the Spitfire's deadly nemesis, the Messerschmitt. With great care, Jack would paint his model planes, then fix them to the ceiling with fishing wire. Suspended in the air, they looked like they were in the middle of a dramatic dogfight. At night, he would stare up at them from his bunk bed and drift off to sleep, dreaming he was an RAF flying ace, just like his grandfather once was. The boy kept a picture of Grandpa by his bed. He was a young man in the old black and white photograph. It was taken some time in 1940 at the height of the Battle of Britain. Grandpa was standing proudly in his RAF uniform. In his dreams, Jack would go up, up and away, just like his grandfather had. The boy would have given everything he had, all of his past and all of his future, for one moment behind the controls of Grandpa's legendary Spitfire. In his dream, he would be a hero. In his life, he felt like a zero. The problem was that each day was exactly the same. He would go to school every morning, do his homework every afternoon, and eat his dinner in front of the television every night. If only he wasn't so shy. If only he had lots of friends. If only he could break free from his boring life. The highlight of Jack's week was Sunday. That was the day his parents would leave him with his grandfather. Before the old man had become too confused, he would take his grandson on the most magical days out. The Imperial War Museum was the place they loved to visit the most. It was not too far away, in London, and was a treasure trove of all things military. Together the pair would marvel at the old warplanes hanging from the ceiling of the great room. The legendary Spitfire was, of course, their absolute favourite. Seeing her always brought Grandpa's memories of the war flooding back. He would share these stories with his grandson, who devoured every word. On the long bus journey home, Jack would bombard the old man with hundreds and hundreds of questions. What's the fastest speed you ever went in your Spitfire? Did you ever have to have a parachute on? Which is the better fighter plane, the Spitfire or the Messerschmitt? Grandpa loved answering him. Often a crowd of children would gather round the old man on the top deck of the bus home to listen to these incredible tales. It was the summer of 1940, Grandpa would begin, the height of the Battle of Britain. One night I was flying my Spitfire over the English Channel. I had become separated from my squadron. My fighter plane had taken a pounding in a dogfight. Now I was limping back to base. Then, just behind me, I heard machine guns, rat-a-tat-tat. It was a Nazi Messerschmitt, right on my tail. Again, rat-a-tat-tat. It was just the two of us alone over the sea. That night would be an epic fight to the death. So that's all I'm going to read for now. I hope you enjoyed the beginning of it. I love how the history is blended in with the funniness. It gets very funny at the end. So I hope that you will continue to read it. I hope you all have a lovely week ahead of you and keep learning lots. Bye!